For those of you sitting in the back, you will see we have no microphones on this table. And so if you feel like sitting in the back is going to hurt your hearing, or that you feel like you really want to be able to hear better, I would invite you to not sit in the back. And perhaps maybe it would be better if you sat up front, because we don't have microphones or anything here. So please be aware of that.
This is the A row anyway.
Actually, Brenda,
This is the A row anyway.
Yes, yes.
Brenda, we do have Alex and
Oh,
Bob.
I stand corrected. Never mind, you can stay in the back. We have microphones. Okay. Good morning. My name is Brenda Little, and I'm the chair of the board here at LCCC. Welcome to our interview this morning with Mr. Robert, quote unquote, Bob Cox.
Me, Bob.
Bob used to work here, so several of you are probably very familiar with Bob. Before we get started, I want to just give you a couple of notes on the process. Wyoming law states that the Community College Board shall appoint a chief administrative officer of the community college, and this Board of Trustees takes that responsibility very solemnly and very seriously. We want to appoint the person who is best for this college, the students, the faculty, the staff, and also the community. And so in order to do that, we feel like we need your help and your input, which is why we have invited the public to watch the interviews as a part of this process. This interview is scheduled to last 1 hour. During that hour, we'd like you to listen to Mr. Cox's responses and score them according to a score sheet that you have received. And for those who are here for the first interview, you should still have your score sheet from that interview. Those who are here for the first time, you should have a score sheet with you that have all the candidates' names. Once you have sat through all of the interviews that you are able to, both today and Thursday, we invite you to, at that time, turn in your score sheets. Please turn them into any board member. You can turn them into me, or John Kaiser here, Ed Mosier, and of course Carol and Kevin, who are also part of the interview committee. And then we as a board will tabulate those score sheets. We will read your comments. We will use your comments and scores right along with ours. They'll be given a little bit different weight, of course, because it's the board's responsibility to choose the president and the interim president. But we will for sure look at all those comments and score sheets. We will use them in our analysis, and then what will happen after the tabulation and review of the score sheets, we will discuss the results at an executive session that we are planning on having on Wednesday, February 2nd, which is our regularly scheduled study session. After the study session, we are going to go into executive session and talk about the candidates, the score sheets, all of that, and then we will make a decision at that time whether to hire a person we have interviewed or to continue the search. Please know that even though we are reviewing everybody's score sheets, the final decision on the interim president is a decision of the Board of Trustees, and we will be making that decision. After this interview that will last an hour, we are going to take a half-an-hour break, and then Mr. Cox will have a chance to get a drink of water and use the facilities and take a deep breath, and then we're going to go into open forum a half an hour afterwards. What we would ask is that if you have questions for Mr. Cox, that you wait and please ask those in the open forum instead of in that half-an-hour break, because we all want to be able to hear the question and hear his answer.
Actually, there's a 1 hour break.
Oh, thanks, John. This is an exception. There's a 1 hour break for lunch, so forget the half-an-hour business. We're going to get a 1 hour break for lunch from noon to 1. All of the questions are going to be asked by Alex Barker, the president of ASG. And so on that note, I will turn the process over to Alex.
I'd like to just say one thing as a point of clarification. On these scoring sheets, there's a line that says response, and a number of people have expressed confusion over what that means. The word in there originally was presentation. That line is meant for you to score the overall quality of their presentation. Do they speak clearly? Do they speak loud enough? and so forth and so on. So I don't know how that word got to be response, but that's the magic of computers and word processing. You can get the wrong word in there.
Thanks, Kevin. Question 1. Laramie County Community College is interested in the quality of their programs. Give us an example of a time when you became aware of deficiencies in program quality at a college where you were employed and how you fixed the problem.
Okay, thanks. First, I would say good morning to you all. It's a pleasure for me to be back here at LCCC and be able to visit with you and have an opportunity. So I appreciate the opportunity and thanks for the call. I also appreciate getting the questions in advance, quite frankly. Getting these told would have been a little bit of a challenge, I can tell, and for everybody, as well as the opportunity for everybody to bring their response. But with regard to the specifics on this particular question, I think there are two elements that stand out. The first one has to do with program quality, and then second of all has to do with the word deficiency. I think program quality, and whether a program is deficient or efficient or good or whatever the other side of that equation is, all tend to follow the same type of a criteria with regard to an evaluation process. The question also asks about specifics. I personally have been involved with several. There are two that stand out rather loom largely, I guess, from the past and most recently. And so my comments here are going to basically revolve around those two things, one being an instructional program and the second being an auxiliary service program. And in order to avoid talking about people's names and the specifics of that, I would just assume not to. And I just think it's in good order that we don't go down that path. But what I would do is like to talk about some of the issues that elevated or brought it up to the attention of what was at issue. And I think from a fiscal side, since that's predominantly what my background has been is in the fiscal side, is looking at enrollments. What does it look like? I mean, are we seeing, as we look at a particular program, low enrollments? That's kind of a cue that we need to, A, take a look at it and say, what's happening with the program? Is there something wrong with it? So that's one of the first things, and that's usually fairly easily identified with regard to enrollment reports and those types of things. Second of all is looking at the opposite end of it is maybe one of the problems with it is that there's no place to go with it. In other words, there's no job opportunities on the end of it. It doesn't transfer well for some reason if it's an academic program or something like that. And then I think third that's easy to actually do is to look at what is costing you to run the program. Is it an expensive program? How expensive is it? What's it costing you per student to function? And so I think those are some of the key elements that stand out as the first point that you look at and say, okay, that's the dashboard look. Those are the things that we need to key in on. If the program seems that it's deficient, then I think the next step to look at is the curriculum. What does the curriculum look like? Is there a plan? Is there an expected outcome? In other words, has the faculty member or put together a good plan? Is the curriculum clear as to what the expected progress is in the class and ultimately what the outcome is supposed to be? The other thing you need to look at is the delivery of the program. How is the program being delivered? Is it being delivered in such a way that it's difficult for students to take, to be there, so you've got to focus on that, as well as ultimately the cost to deliver some programs. Some programs are extremely expensive to deliver. Are there other ways to deliver the program that aren't as expensive, but the student can get the same benefit from it? And I hate to pick on the instructor, but it isn't just an instructor, it might be a manager. Are they capable of managing or running a class that is well planned, well organized? Are they well organized, well planned? Do they know what they need to do? And so those, I think, are some of the key things that need to be evaluated. And those are more challenging to do and more difficult to do. So with that, I think the next step after that is there something we can do to make the program better? Is it worth pursuing after we've evaluated all of those elements? And so I think you're looking at, is there a training opportunity here? Do we want to invest more funds into the program to make it function better? Do we reorganize it in such a way that we can accomplish what we want to? I think those are all of the ideas. And finally, really, I think the question needs to be asked, is there a demand for the program? Is there truly a demand for the program? As I said, there were 2 programs, and not to reveal what they are, but one of them was an academic program, or I should say instructional program, and it was very expensive to run. There were very few students in it. There were probably 5 or 6 students at best in it. The cost to run the program was extremely high and getting higher. I had discovered it because of the costs were sitting out on the balance sheet rather than through the budget of the college. And I said, this isn't going to work, folks. And ultimately went and began to investigate similarly as I've talked about. And the bottom line was that after we discussed it and looked at the job opportunities on the rear end of it, it was determined that it needed to be, we needed to end that program. And so it did. On the other side of that, it was an auxiliary service that was actually was on this campus. Went through a particularly difficult time. We were seeing a lot of turnover. We were seeing complaints from the people that used it, the service, and ultimately we stepped in and said, well, it's in high demand. It's something that's needed by the students, and as a result, we were able to actually invest money into it, get it started up, change the managers, and the program ran quite well after that. And so those are 2 examples that I have in kind of a general way. So if anybody has any questions, I'm open to it.
You have brought up the point of if these programs are quite expensive, it draws your attention to them. But things like laboratory sciences and so forth, because they require so many expensive supplies, and laboratories are hard to organize in terms of equipment and so forth, they are kind of expensive programs.
They are.
And surely you don't mean to suggest that academic programs should always pay for themselves. On the bottom line, some of you simply have to run into laws.
That's correct. And that's anticipated. And I think you reach a point where you ask yourself how far or how much you invest into a particular program. Laboratory science, we understand that. That's why oftentimes we see the growth in fees to help us support those programs. In this particular case, there was no way a fee was going to get high enough to be able to recover that. And again, our goal isn't necessarily to break even on those programs, or because it's all part of the bigger picture. And so there's a sharing, if you will, that goes on. Those courses that where you, in essence, make money on basically offset things like what you're talking about, laboratory science classes and those kinds of things. But you do have to be aware of the costs that are associated with it.
Question 2. Organizational executives often delegate broad authority to subordinates. Suppose you had authorized someone to fix a particular problem, and this person kept reporting progress on getting the problem fixed, but you were unable to determine if the situation was actually improving. How would you go about assessing progress on this problem? If it turned out that there were no progress, what would you do then?
Excuse me just a second. Let's live in a dry climate. Or something about this seat, I think. Like the first question, this is a process question and a problem resolution question. I think number one, the issue needs to be that you have to clarify the problem. You know, what is the problem? What are we dealing with? Is it an employee retention issue? Is it a student retention issue? Do we have a lot of absenteeism that's associated with it? Do we have a persistent complaint from either the students or the people that use the service? Are there grapevines? You know, there is a big grapevine in this college, and those that have been here a long, long time would remember when we did the grapevine show. It'd be fun to bring that back, I think, because it's huge and big. But when you hear a persistent complaint about a particular department, that's what you need to use as the basis of clarify what exactly the problem is. Second of all, you need to assess the risk. This is about risk management. How do we assess what's happening with the particular problem that's been identified? Do we need HR assistance, human resources assistance? Do we need legal assistance? Is there training that needs to get involved with what's happening here? Do we need to train our folks with regard to how to deal with employees or how to deal with issues that are associated with whatever the particular problem is, customer service? Then you need to determine what the resources are that are available. Do you, for example, one thing you might consider is bringing in other departments to help assist. You know, what's happening in one area may be happening in another, or somebody may have figured out how to deal with the particular problems. Try to work internally as you can to deal with it. Of course, I think we've all been through brainstorming sessions. That might be a possibility to consider as well to determine what's needed, what we can do to fix it, and what other financial types of items or costs that we might have to use. The next step is establish a clear time frame to fix the problem. This may be a series of times where we see how we progress, but ultimately what needs to come out of that is determining a plan, setting specific goals, and establishing whatever the report process will be and the frequency of that to resolve it. Now, I know that one of the key parts of the question has to do with, well, what if you're not making any progress? Then what? I mean, even after you've done all that, now what do you do? So this is where it gets extremely challenging, and I know that many of us that have been in an administrative role and management role understand how challenging it can be, because you may have an employee that's not being reactive, not doing the kinds of things that you ask them to do. As an administrator, you want to trust and support the manager or director, but at the same time, you've got to be aware of the impact on others. So I believe it's at that point that you've got to elevate this to a higher level, and that's where you bring in the folks, be it HR, be it legal, or whatever, to begin the process. The problem when you get into a process like this is there's a potential for it to get